All right, good evening, everybody. It's an exciting time to see all those people baptized. It's really great. I'm glad that we had the opportunity to see that, and that our kids had the opportunity to see that as well. It's a good testimony to them as well. So we're coming to the end of our time here. It's been about 2 weeks, and Jamen and I are still friends after the 2 weeks. It's pretty amazing, especially when he came out to Japan for 2 weeks. Yeah. And he got to live with us, and then we're here for 2 weeks living with you, and it's a good indicator that we have a strong friendship.
That's right.
So
we never did room together in college. We knew better.
Yes. So today I'm going to be talking about online ministry and internet evangelism. So let's pray as we get started. All right. Dear God, thank you for this time that we have together. Thank you for the ministry here and all the baptisms that happen, and for each individual person, God, and all the futures that they have here, and the desires and the potential of this ministry. I pray for each individual person here, all their prayer requests and their needs. We lift them up to you, God. Pray that you would bless this church. Pray you bring these people together strongly to reach their community around them. Thinking about Minneapolis area and places around us with about 500,000 people within 30 minutes of here. And thinking about the good location that they're at and the new church building and all these hopes that they have. God, we lift them up to you. We ask for your blessings and your guidance and your direction and your spirit. And tonight, or this evening, as we learn about online internet evangelism and ministry, I pray for your guiding and directing hand. And we ask these things in the name of Christ. Amen. All right, so today may be kind of like before. There'll be opportunities for you to talk and ask questions about things. This is going to be more kind of practical than and other kind of messages that I've done. But I just want you guys to think about your life in the past 20, 30, 40 years, and think about how the technologies have come from where we started to where we're at now with AI and things like that. Think about the internet. I first had the internet, I think it was 1994 or 95, something like that. I was an 11-year-old kid. I had a dial-up modem, 8K, whatever, and getting on the internet, things like that. It'd take you an hour to download one song, something like that, you know. But now we can rapidly talk to people face-to-face over the internet, and there's so much potential. This has really changed the whole landscape of missions and what it is and what it means. In the past, you know, it would take you a month to get on a boat and go overseas and talk to somebody. Now you can fire up this internet, and I could talk to hundreds or thousands of people every single day across the world instantly. And there's nothing stopping me from doing that. We still have the freedom to do that. So this is a unique era that we live in, so we should use that era. We should use the technology that we have for God. So often we hear about the internet being used for great evil, and it is, but why not use it for great good as well? And we're just now a lot of independent Baptists are just now starting to catch up to that. They're starting to get on to TikTok and YouTube and things like that. They're starting to get out there. But for the ones that have been pioneers on this, they have been instrumental in leading countless people to the Lord. And with that in mind, looking to the future, there's great potential to move into it, to reach more souls. So let's go into this today, internet evangelism. Looking at the backstory. So post-COVID, April 2022, I started doing daily online soul winning after praying about it. In Japan, the ministry is very slow. It can take many years just for one salvation to happen. So with the internet, I was looking for an out too. Also during these times during COVID, you couldn't really go outside either. So you were on the computer all the time. So there's great potential to do ministry, and that kind of changed many people's course to think about internet differently during that time. The technology boom is completing the Great Commission. Think about that. Even I was talking to the Nyberg family today, and he was talking about just in these African villages, there's people that have smartphones. They may not have direct internet connection, but they can download apps and things like that. So it's incredible to think about that, how the internet is completing the Great Commission. The internet can go places that we as missionaries cannot physically go. It can go into countries and places that we're not allowed to go. It can talk to people and give them the message of the gospel that we're not allowed to do. I would even say more people have been reached online than with physical missionaries in our lifetime. There's been many people who have been saved because of VPNs and things like that in the Muslim world. It's causing a huge uproar. So we should not be ashamed. We should invest in websites, making our own websites. Nowadays, it's easy to make a website. You don't have to know any website code or anything. You can just buy a click and build website and make it. Anyone can do it. Any of my kids can do it. Twitter, YouTube, Monkey, TikTok, these are all the name of some websites and apps that you can use to reach people with the gospel. So most people today, they're addicted to smartphones. If you went to their house, they wouldn't talk to you, but they will talk to you through their phone. And that's a huge cultural shift that's happened. I noticed it in Japan many years ago, and that was one of the things that got me into doing ministry over the internet. That's the generation that we're living in. People don't really know how to communicate with each other face-to-face anymore, but on the internet, they're completely different people. There's unlimited opportunities. You can preach worldwide now, and you can potentially lead many people to the Lord. Anyone can do that. So what do you learn about people when you're on the internet? Generation Z, that's age 14 to 29, is ripe for the gospel. And that's the generation and younger that is most connected to technology. Think about it. A lot of these people, they do not know what life is like without a smartphone unless their parents intentionally, protect them from that. Most salvations worldwide on internet ministries come from this group of people, I've noticed. They are definitely a clean slate. When you're on the internet, sexual perversion and pornography are huge issues. I read something like about 20% of pastors or ministry people are addicted to pornography, and something like 65% of just everyday churchgoers are as well. So it's a huge problem. It's a huge epidemic. We need to be aware of that. So while I'm here, think about this. Do you know what your kids are doing on the smartphones or the game systems? They can work in much of the same way. Why would you give your kid a smartphone? Why would you even do that? A lot of people are ignorant of what a smartphone can do, and a lot of people use it as a babysitter, and that babysitter has allowed their kids to access things that they should not access. And it's happening all around the world constantly. And because of that, there are suicidal, depressed people everywhere. There's people with major issues and traumas and things like that because of that. And also, you learn that demonic possession is real. There's lots of demonic activity. The dark powers are active, and you need not be afraid of demons. You don't need to be afraid of the dark side of the internet. Just like the original apostles, when they went to spread the gospel, they weren't afraid of demons either. They went out into these landscapes. They went into the dark areas of the world. They confronted the powers and principalities. They had God on their side, and they made major strides. If we're afraid to go on the internet and do this, we're going to be missing out on great potential for souls. And also you learn that there's many fools and scorners and mockers, but they cannot discourage you. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you can always just go on to another video or another comment, or just ignore the people or pass on to somebody else. You don't need to let these kind of people discourage you. What we learn about churches, what I have learned is that many Christians are not born again. Most people trust their self for salvation. They're trusting their church. They're trusting their baptism. They're not trusting Christ alone. And many do not read their Bibles at all. Everything is outsourced to videos or someone else to do their thinking. A lot of people don't really do their own thinking anymore. So that makes me ask the question, what gospel do churches actually preach? Kind of makes you wonder when you come across these people all the time, what are they actually teaching? A lot of times it's something more of like it can be a health and wealth type gospel. It can be a motivational speech. But a lot of times it's not the gospel. It's not the simplicity of the gospel. And also many churches have no doctrine or they have horrible doctrine. And oftentimes those are the type of groups that have power and influence that are spreading their message on the internet, on YouTube and on TikTok and all these places, unfortunately. But I also want to say that there are excellent resources for preaching, discipleship, and Bibles on the internet. There's countless excellent resources. It's our job as mature believers to find these resources and get them to the people. I have a guy that I help do ministry with in India, and I've given him many resources, all kinds of ebooks and PDFs, websites, YouTube resources for a Bible school equivalent education online for free. So as long as there's a willingness to do that, there's people out there that are waiting. You can connect them with these resources that can be impactful to many. No longer do people need to get on an airplane and come over here and have an expensive Bible education. They can do it online. And also I've learned that many Christians do not attend church, which becomes a source of their problems. They try to do life on their own. They try to do the lone wolf path. So many people, so many Americans do that, and they think with the internet that they can do that. But that becomes a stumbling block for them. And also, follow-up is crucial. Discipleship is crucial. It's one thing to lead someone to the Lord, but it's work. It's a lot of work to do follow-up. You have to be persistent. It's crucial. And you have to have some kind of plan to disciple new believers. You're talking about people that have no background from zero, or coming from different countries that have no concept of Christian things. So discipleship is crucial. And of course, you learn that there are many hearers of the word only, but not doers of the word. When you start encountering lots of Christians and people on the internet, you realize that a lot of them, they want to do evangelism, but they have no resources at their church. No one has told them how to do it. They have no idea. And a lot of them also are more like passengers on the plane, and they don't want to actually do it. So these are all things that I learned from people as I do online ministries about churches. What did I learn about evangelism? Any born-again believer can be an international soul winner. All you have to do is get on there and do it. You have to be willing to fail many times. You have to be willing to try. It's always easier to share the gospel with strangers than with friends. There's no emotional attachment. When you meet a stranger, it might be your one and only time that you see them. Just like if I was out on the street corner handing out a gospel tract and trying to witness somebody, it might be my one and only time. It might be their last time before they die. You never know. So without that emotional attachment, you can afford to be more bold. You can afford to engage people in a different way that you normally wouldn't do with friendship evangelism. And with friendship evangelism, you spend a lot of time getting to know somebody, and the more time you know them, the harder it is to witness to them. It seems to be the case. And when you do witness to them, they might still say, no, I don't want anything to do with it. And you can't be friends with everyone. You only have a limited amount of time. So strangers seems to be, a lot of times it seems to be the preferred method. And also, again, we may only have one chance to lead someone to the Lord. That might be our only chance. So it gives you a boldness that If you do street ministry, it also gives you a boldness that you wouldn't have in your neighborhood or something like that. It's a different kind of ministry. And then, of course, evangelism is about planting, watering, and harvesting. We need to learn where the other person is at in that process. So when you're talking to people, you're asking them questions, you're trying to find out where are they at in that process. Have they not heard it before? Is it a planting scenario? Is it a watering scenario? Maybe they grew up in church, they know a lot about God, but maybe they have never connected the dots. Or is it a harvesting thing? Are they ready? Are they ripe? Are they ready to trust the Lord? We need to be discerning of the people that we're talking to and ask them the right questions. And I have here what's called the modified angle scale. It's helped me out a lot. I would say look it up on the internet. It's called the angle scale. And it has a list of all the different levels where people are at. And based upon where they're at, it gives you advice about how to talk to them and how to engage them. And it starts at the very bottom, which is -10. There is no God framework. So that is kind of, for instance, where a lot of Japanese people are at. They're at this -10 to -8 level. Emptiness, vague awareness of Christianity, that's where they're at. And you want to get them up to 0 and 1. That's what evangelism is. Evangelism and pre-evangelism is from -10 to 0. Now that can happen over many years. That can happen in one conversation. I've seen it happen a few times in one conversation. It is possible. Or it can take many years. There's lots of different blocks to that. But I would encourage you, go on the internet, look up the angle scale, and then look up the advice that it has for each of these levels and how to engage people. A lot of times there's time that's spent with prayer. A lot of times it has to do with reasoning and persuading. Or other times it has to do with just sharing the parts of the scriptures with them and letting that seed do its work. This is how you can become wise to do the work of evangelism. And also I've had scenarios where God has brought back people to me to complete the job, meaning that I've talked to people on the internet and they started maybe at -10, and then I get them right before making a decision, and then I'll be like, well, I'll never see that person again. And then weeks later, a month later, bam, I'll see that person again, and they're ready to trust Christ, and they do trust Christ. I've seen that happen a couple of times. So that shows me that God can bring people back, but it also shows that you don't know where you're at in that process when you're talking to people. You don't know if you're at the -10 and you're just starting and like, man, that person is a real jerk. I'm not getting anywhere with them. Well, maybe next month down the line, they might be further down and they might be ready. You just don't know. And when people get saved, oftentimes it's because someone has been praying for them. A lot of times I ask them that. Do you know anybody in your family? Do you know any Christians? Chances are someone's been praying for them. Somebody along the past. I've had that happen countless times. When someone gets saved, they'll tell me, Grandma's been praying for me, or somebody knows me. So don't give up on praying for the people around you. Don't give up on praying your family. That hardcore atheist person, don't give up on them. More that I learned about evangelism is that Islam is everywhere. We need to learn how to engage it. And that's why I wrote that book, 4 Paths Out of Islam. That's the reason for it. And also, hell is one of the best tools for evangelism. Do not be afraid to use it. Many people are afraid to even cross that line, to even talk about hell. But that, for me, is the most important thing, that existential question. What happens after you die? Are you willing to face eternity? Based upon your belief on hell is going to motivate you to do evangelism better or worse, I think. Persuasion is crucial. And throughout the Bible, persuasion language is used. We need to learn how to persuade people. That's what the Apostle Paul did. He persuaded people. He reasoned with them. So we need to learn about that. We need to learn about how to communicate with people, how to persuade them of the truth. a lot of that pre-evangelism is going to make a huge difference for someone's eternity. And also, we need to be solid on the doctrine of soteriology, which is the doctrine of salvation, how actually to lead someone to the Lord. We need to be solid about our Christology, namely knowing about Christ and the deity of Christ. You're going to be encountering that all the time when you do evangelism. People are going to push back on Jesus. Was he God? And also, you need to know some basic logic and reasoning skills. And you're going to need to know a little bit of philosophy as well. You're going to need to be aware of some of these existential ideas, as you're going to encounter them when you're out there. Also, we need to have different strategies for different groups of people. Every people group I have a different strategy for. If I'm talking to Hindus, I have one strategy. Muslims, Mormons, JWs, Catholics. Every group has its pet peeves and its different things, strongholds that need to be overcome to come to Christ. We need to learn about those and be ready to use them. And also online or on your smartphone, you can have all of your documents ready to engage people. That's something that has been very helpful for me. I have like a Windows or Android-based phone, so I can access the Google Drive, and I can just go right onto Google Drive and look up all my notes. And when I'm talking to someone face to face, I can just pull it up and have my notes right there. I don't have to memorize. I don't have to know anything. I don't have to be a big brain. I can have all the notes right there. And that's a huge tool, a huge advantage to do ministry online and offline. So let's talk a little bit about indirect evangelism. So what are the ways to do indirect evangelism on the internet? So these are different ways. You can use Facebook or X, Blue Sky, Getter, and other more text-based social media. You can use indirect evangelism through posting about God. So you can have your own account, your own name. You can post about God. Your friends and your followers can see it. You can put up quotes. I do this all the time. Find Christian quotes, put them up. Bible verses, I do this all the time. Or you can reply to other people's posts. I do this all the time. So I have a few X accounts and one Getter account currently. My Japanese X account, every day in the morning, I just post either a Bible verse, a Christian quote, or a video about Christian doctrine or some kind of Christian thing. Every morning I do that, and then I tag all the popular posts. Sometimes I'll get 10 views, sometimes I'll get 10,000 views. It just depends on what's happening that day. And then from there you can see how many people, clicked on your link or whatever, and that goes directly to my website or to download a Bible. And when it comes to replying to other people, I just search with the Japanese Twitter or X, I just search the suicide posts. And it brings up all the suicide posts that have 10 likes or more. And I just reply to those with a little word of encouragement and then a link to download a Bible. Sometimes I've had hardly anybody look at it. Sometimes I've had tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people look at it and download Bibles.
How do you tag the popular post?
How do you tag it?
Yeah.
You can go on Google and you can look up popular whatever's trending on X in Japan, and you find those hashtags, and then you put those words with the hashtags on your post when you post it. Yep. And when it comes to reply, you just do a search. You can type in for suicide, it's just jisatsu, and then you go on the advanced settings and you can set it to show you posts that have 5 likes or more, and they'll show you all the huge ones. So I have a bunch of copy and pastes already set up, so I don't have to type it out. I can just do that, bam, 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 bam. So every morning I do that on Japanese Twitter and American Twitter. American Twitter, I just have a website, a link that's connected to my website, After Death Truth. And my theme is I just go on there and I search for deaths. Every day somebody dies. There's a celebrity or whatever. And when the celebrity dies, there's thousands of people saying stuff. I just go post a Bible verse. or I post a website or something like that, and then people see that and they go to the website. So things like that. That's very indirect. Everything is indirect. And sometimes people reply to me, and then I can just go in and ask them evangelism questions. If you die today, are you sure you'll be in heaven? What happens after you die? Things like that. And then I can give them a video I already made. So on Getter's like Republican Twitter. I have been able to lead a lot of people to the Lord on Getter. Blue Sky, I was going on there for a while, but I've been banned off there twice, so I quit doing Blue Sky. But Blue Sky is a good place too. It's like a Democrat Twitter, basically. So you can get on there and engage a lot of people. The problem with Blue Sky, though, is they're really kind of anti-free speech, so they'll tag you pretty quick, and they'll start saying hate speech, this and that, even for the most basic kind of things. But Getter and X are pretty free when it comes to free speech still, so you can do a lot of activity on there. This is very indirect, but anybody can do this. It doesn't require a lot of intelligence even. It just requires you to be persistent every single day. Take like 5-10 minutes every single day. That's what I've been doing for years. And I just, told you about that. And through Japanese X, there's like 40 million plus people on Japanese X. It's like one of the biggest social medias over there. And that's been one of the primary ways I've been able to get Bibles out. A lot of people download Bibles that way that normally wouldn't. It really filters out people who have interest. And then, of course, another way of indirect evangelism is to make a website. I made a website, afterdeathtruth.net. I stamp that on the back of my gospel tracts that I give out. It has the gospel and different videos in 7 different languages. It does all the work. It doesn't cost too much. You can look at the different rates. You can get a website, maybe $200 to $300 for a year, maybe $500 when you do the domain and the host, or less. You can get some free websites too and just do it that way. But this is very indirect. I don't have to talk to anybody. I just put the track out. I leave the tracks everywhere. I could leave it on top of a toilet, in the phone booth, give it to somebody in interaction, whatever. Every single day, I'm constantly giving out tracts, leaving them all over the place, put it in a little free library, whatever, inside of a Bible, all over the place. You can do that very indirect. You don't have to talk to anybody. And it goes all to your website. And then on the website, you can have a comment part, and people can message you and ask you things, and you can give them more resources and refer them to other things. That's very easy. Anyone can do that. Now, how about direct evangelism? That's mostly what online soul winning is, direct evangelism. So YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Ome TV, Monkey, Umingle, Chat Roulette, they're all direct forms of social media where you can engage people live and share the gospel with them. YouTube, if you get big enough, you can do live streams and people will come on and you can engage people directly that way. You can bring them on and talk to them. That's what the guy, his website is called needgod.net, is doing a lot now. He has such a huge presence now that he can just turn on a live stream and there'll be thousands of people there asking him. Instagram is another one you can do a lot, put up videos and things like that. I've been banned off of Instagram. I don't mess with Instagram anymore, but there's other people that do. Instagram is very particular about free speech, so you have to be very careful if you want to do Instagram. TikTok is another one where lots of people have been able to share the gospel. One of our friends, Dan Bergman, he got in on it when it first started. He has millions of followers, seen thousands of salvations just by doing that. And with all these things, the difference is you got to be okay with putting your face out in public. You got to be okay with all the unforeseen consequences that come with that. People contacting you all the time, people threaten you, all the weird stuff that comes with it. I mean, the more you grow, think about it. If you have 1 million followers, I mean, that's like a whole city. That's a whole state. There's about 1 million people that live in Montana. You have a whole state watching you all the time. So you have to be okay with that. I'm not okay with that. I don't like to put my face on the internet myself. So my YouTube doesn't have my face on it. But if you're okay with that, good, do it. Use it. All these other ones, Ome TV, Monkey, and Umingle, and Chat Roulette, these are face-to-face webcam websites. So you go on there, and it connects you with people rapidly. Bam, 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 bam. So in one hour, you could see 100 plus people instantly. Out of those, Monkey is probably the safest one. It has the best filters on it. You're not going to see perverts and things on that. Mingle as well is super safe. Chat Roulette, though all three of those are regulated, but Ome TV is like the Wild West. You're going to get all kinds of people. You're going to get perverts. Once in a while, you'll get naked people. You're going to get suicidal people. You're going to get drug users. You're going to get all walks of life. I equate it to going downtown to your city at nighttime during the bar scene or something. You're going to get all walks of life. And there's ways around that. You don't have to see their face. You can just put up a sticker over your screen if you don't want to see them. But what happens is you have people that come on and it connects you rapidly, and you have a few seconds to talk to them. They're going to determine in those few seconds if they like you and they want to talk to you or not. So sometimes, it'll take a while, but eventually you'll get someone that wants to talk to you. And with Ome TV, you have upwards to 500,000 people on there at any given time. So there's a huge, ridiculous amount of people. So I've been doing this for years, and it's rare for me to see the same person again twice. But it does happen. You have something you want to say?
I was just going to say for those that don't want to put their face on there, Eli doesn't put his face on these face-to-face apps. A lot of times he turns the camera away to
Yeah.
look at something else.
Yeah.
Some of them you can explain about that, but they don't have to put their face on that.
Yeah, when I first started out, I was putting my face on there, but after a while, I started to encounter people that were dangerous, and they could trace your IPs and stuff like that when I was first starting on Omegle. Nowadays, it's not like that. It's more regulated, but I just, like she was saying, I just tilt the camera to the right a little bit, and I don't put my face on there. Some people don't like that, but most people don't care. And if they have a problem with that, I just tell them, listen, it's not about me, it's about the message. That's what's important. And I find, believe it or not, that when I don't put my face on there, people are more willing to talk to me. And also they concentrate more because they're not looking at you, they're thinking about what you have to say. It's really interesting, kind of a social or psychological dynamic. But that's on you, whatever you want to do. But the fact is there's thousands and thousands of people every single day, any time of the day, you can go on and talk to. All you need is a webcam and your parents' permission and a mic and a keyboard, obviously. I've been banned off of Ome TV recently for putting Bible verses on there. They're getting more and more particular about typing anything on there. They won't let you do that anymore. So, and also I use VPNs a lot. So you can switch your VPN for your own privacy. But some of these other ones like Mingle, there are apps where you can download or add-ons to where it will tell you exactly your GPS, the state, your address, everything right there. So there's people that can know exactly where you're at. So that's a reason why I use VPNs. I don't use my own address or my own server. You just don't know who you're dealing with. There could be some dangerous people out there. And again, it's like the Wild West. There can be risk, but there's also great reward. Again, they can be very particular about what you can and cannot say. It's easy to be banned from these quickly. I've been banned from Instagram a bunch of times. I just gave up on it. TikTok, I've been banned from multiple times. I just gave up on TikTok. But you might be able to do better than I did. A lot of people have huge influence that way. Again, you have to be okay with putting your face out there. When I first started on TikTok, it was first starting, I was getting on there, getting videos. It was getting like 100,000 views per video or some just ridiculous amounts. This is what it was built for. And having all kinds of views and stuff like that. But then I just was getting banned right away because they didn't like my website, afterdeathtruth.net. They didn't like the gospel, obviously. So, and at that time, I don't know if it was a Chinese company or not. I don't know what the story is behind it, but a lot of people are on there doing their thing all the time, and it's a really good way to do it. And of course, these webcam sites are great for evangelism, but again, they come with the danger of dealing with random people. And of course, like I said, Monkey and Umingle are the safest ones. Ome TV is like the Wild West. And there's all kinds of other, pervert ones out there, but I would say these are the best ones to stick with. And again, when you're talking to strangers on the internet, you have to have wisdom. I don't let kids do this. I would never let a kid under 18 on any of these. But believe it or not, there's tons of kids on these too. It's really sad. Their parents just let them go and talk to whoever all over the world. So you can see how the danger of this happens. But there is great potential, but you have to come up with a strategy to do it, and you just have to resolve yourself to do it. You have to take that first step and do it. And once you start doing it, it becomes easy. That fear isn't there anymore. All right, well, next I'm going to kind of move on into some different ways how I engage people. But before I do that, does anyone have any questions or thoughts or anything about online evangelism? All right. Talk about follow-up a little bit. I encourage people to pray. So after I lead people to the Lord, I have a set steps that I do. I encourage them to pray. I encourage them to get a Bible and read it and to find a good church. I give them my email address for future help. I use websites like newtojesus.com as a good follow-up after salvation website. And also kjvchurches.com. I just tell them to type in the name of their city, and it'll help them find a good Bible-believing church. And that way, I've directed people to countless independent Baptist churches all around the world. And whether people go to those churches or not, I don't know. They might go to them right away. They might never go to them, or they might go to them years down the road. You just don't know. And the same goes with soul winning in your neighborhood. If you knock 1,000 doors and you lead 30 people to the Lord, you're going to have a small percentage that are actually going to come to church at the end of the day. And that's why that follow-up is important with the in-person. But on the internet, there's not, you just never know how it's going to go. Again, sometimes people attend church right away. Other time, it can take years. We have to trust God in that whole process. Trust that God is doing something. And of course, when you talk to people, sometimes certain kind of sins show up. People have addictions. They need help. And I always give people the sports team analogy when it comes to going to church and living the Christian life. Telling them like exercising is like praying, eating good food is like reading the Bible, and practicing is like going to church. So I try to put it to them in simple and easy terms that they can understand to help them to get started. And I always have them start off just 5 minutes a day. I don't give them way too much. They're just starting out. They don't have a clue about anything. When it comes to porn, I tell them, a lot of times I'll lead people to the Lord, and then they'll tell me afterward, well, I'm struggling with pornography. What can I do? That happens a lot. So I tell them to cut out the things in their life that have sexual or lustful things in it. Music, movies, games, magazines with the lust. And I tell them to replace those with godly things. A lot of times people don't even realize they're feeding themselves with this stuff all the time, constantly. And that they need to replace those things. They need to cut them out. And also to get accountability on their phones. And that's something that Jamen really promotes here. And I think churches would do good to have that, to know exactly what their kids are doing. That's extremely important. So my final thoughts are, you can ask God to give you, or you have to ask God to give you the courage to do it. You have to get out there and do it. You have to take the risk. There's all kinds of websites you can do. You have to be okay with getting rejected constantly. If you're doing face-to-face, you're going to encounter lots of hostile people. Most of the people you're going to encounter are going to reject you. So not everybody is going to get saved. But there are people that are smarter than you, no matter how you look at it. There's always going to be someone out there that knows more than you do. You're going to be humbled at different times. And also, I like to refer to books. If I'm in trouble, I recommend books to people as well. And that's just, I think, just life in general. You're going to be getting constantly rejected. But every day I go on for about an hour when I'm doing it. And every day I either see a salvation, an affirmation of salvation, or someone that gets really close. So it's just like fishing. If you go out in the pond and you spend an hour a day fishing, some days you're going to catch a fish, some days you're going to hook one and put it back, and some days you're going to have one that you almost get to the shore, but it's going to spit it out, or some days you're not going to have anything. So it's the same exact way with online evangelism. You have to trust God, you have to be in prayer. If you decide to go along this venture, you're going to have spiritual opposition. You're going to have different things in your life that you're going to notice they are not normal. You're going to sense intense powers with some people. I mean, there are demons running around out there. There are dark powers. And you have nothing to lose if you do this. You really don't have anything to lose. Again, we need to start thinking more in terms of eternity and spiritual rewards and the reality of hell. We have to think about this one thing that we have, this smartphone, this computer, is the gateway into the lives of millions of people. And that is where most of the new generations are communicating with each other at. So we need to be aware of that. And of course, we need to test the spirits of various teachings. There's all kinds of strange teachings out there. Just talking to people, doing evangelism every day, I come across many strange teachings. So you need to be aware of those things. Not necessarily have an answer to everything all the time, but you have to be willing to research it and to know the answers. And it's going to push your faith as well when you come across all these kind of different people. It's going to help you study. Just studying Islam over the years has made me study deity of Christ and Trinity more than I ever have before in the past, just because people ask questions about it. Okay, so now I'm just going to talk about a little bit of how I do it for the direct evangelism. Any questions? Any thoughts before I go into that? Okay. Have a little bit of time here. See if I can pull this up. Oh, it looks like oh, here it is. Okay. So, here's some questions I have. Just going to go over this with you guys. If you have any questions about it, just let me know. So, here's the approach that I do for a majority of people soul winning on the internet. And this works in person as well. Again, the difference is in person, there's a lot of different formalities that you have to get into a conversation and out of a conversation. There's social etiquette. But with the internet, on a lot of these websites, you're rapidly going into conversations, so there's not a lot of etiquette. You only have a few seconds to talk to people. So the question I always ask people is, in a polite way, I say, can I ask you a question? Or I have a question for you. What happens after you die? Or what do you think happens after you die? Have you ever thought about it? It just goes right into it. They're going to decide whether they want to talk to you or not right away. In those first few seconds, they'll either skip you or they'll go into it. And here's all the answers that I get. The first one is, nothing happens. Second one is, I don't know. Third one, I'm going to hell. Fourth one, I don't care. Next one is, same as before you were born. And then some form of reincarnation, and then heaven. These are the most typical answers you'll get. Or you'll get some kind of weird off-the-wall one that's, you're in the Matrix or something like that. I don't know. Those are kind of rare. But with each of these, I lean on Pascal's wager a lot. And here's Pascal's wager, how I use it, and the way I use it for sharing the gospel. What I say to them, I say, let's say you die, nothing happens. Or whatever they say. Then you have no worry. You don't have to worry about. However, what if you're wrong? What if you die and you end up in hell forever? Wouldn't that be tragic? Is that the kind of risk that you want to take? If you're wrong forever. I put it to them right away. You have no second chance. If you're wrong forever. That's very important, because I don't need to explain to them mentally or logically why reincarnation is wrong and go into all this stuff. Most people don't even know why they believe in reincarnation. Maybe they saw it in a movie or a video game, or their grandma said something about it and they're like, oh, that's neat, I like that. Most people have no clue about reincarnation, why they believe it, or a lot of this stuff. But when you put it to their soul, Pascal's wager, and put hell to them on the table, they're going to respond to that really quick. So let's look at the replies that I do. So if they say, well, you know what, nothing happens, I go right into the wager. So I say, well, let's say you're right. You die, nothing happens, yeah, no worry. Howard, what if you're wrong? What if you die, you wake up in hell? Wouldn't that be tragic? And then I say, look, I don't want that to happen to you. It doesn't have to be that way. You know, the Bible, it tells you how to go to heaven. Have you heard that before? I can show you what it says, and you can decide if you want to believe. So I'm asking them for permission. I'm putting it to them, but I'm asking them for permission too. I'm saying, hey, I'm being friendly. Have you heard that before? And then I tell them, look, I can show you what it says, and you can decide if you want to believe it. I'm putting the power to them. So I'm always looking for permission to continue. If they say yes, then I go on. If they say no, then the conversation gets cut pretty short. So the next response is, well, I don't know what happens after you die. And then I ask them, well, what do you think happens? I try to get it out of them a little bit. And then I go into Pascal's wager again. And I go right into that and ask them if I can show them what the Bible says. The next response is, well, I'm going to hell. You get this every once in a while with a frank and honest person. And I just tell them, I say, hey, look, you're honest, but it doesn't have to be that way, you know? You know, the Bible tells you that you can go to heaven. Have you heard that before? Again, I can show you what it says, and you can decide if you want to believe it. I'm asking them permission. Again, I'm putting it on them. And a lot of the people that answer this way, they're usually pretty somber about it. They're really serious about it. Sometimes they're joking, but a lot of times they're not. Then you get another variant of that. They say, well, my friends are in hell. There's a party there, so I want to be there. And then when they say that, I respond to them and say, look, hell is not a joke. It's a place of fire, darkness, torment forever. You won't be hanging out with your friends. And I can tell them more details or Bible verses and things like that, depending on the person. And then I say, look, it doesn't have to be that way. You know, the Bible, it tells you how you can know that you go to heaven. And then again, I go right into it. Sometimes they say that to be funny and they want to know. Other times they say it just to be proud or whatever. And the ones that are more proud, sometimes you can reason with them into it, but a lot of times they're just going to take off and do their own thing. Or I notice if there's a group of people, maybe one of them will say this to kind of impress their friends or something like that. And you have to decide if you're going to engage a group of people or not. A lot of times my best success is one-on-one, but there have been times when I come on these chat programs and there's a whole group of people. One time I had a whole group of people, like 6, or probably 2 times. And I could feel the intensity right away, but I just put the heat on and I just go for it and preach the gospel to them, and every single one of them got saved. It can happen. Sometimes it happens like a 2 or a 3, but a lot of times if you have a 2 or a 3, there'll be one that pulls the other one out of the way, or there'll be one that will leave and the other one will stay. Sometimes you'll have 2, or sometimes you'll be talking to someone and you think it's just one person, but they're actually on a feed with hundreds of people or something like that. So you're preaching to that one person, but you're actually preaching to countless people. So things like that happen on these feeds all the time. A lot of people go on these websites like Ome TV just to get reactions out of people and record it on YouTube or something like that. So sometimes you get an opportunity to preach to many, many people that way. So that was the hell response. And then another response I get a lot is the I don't care response. So I say, well, maybe you should care. You never know when you might die. It could be today or tomorrow or next week. Life is short, but eternity's forever. The Bible, it tells you that you can go to heaven. Have you heard that before? And then I go right into it. And then sometimes I get that response, well, what about when you die, it's the same as before you were born. And then I tell them, well, before you were born, you didn't exist. However, you exist now. Your soul, your energy, it's going to go on forever. It's either going to be in heaven or hell. And then I tell them that Pascal's wager again and get them thinking about it. And then the response is reincarnation. Reincarnation or any of these other responses, I just say, okay, let's say you're right. Let's say you die, you come back again, or you come back as a ghost, or you're in the Matrix or whatever. Okay, I would say, well, okay, that's interesting. That would be neat if that happened. But then I say, what if you're wrong? What if you die, you wake up in hell? And then again, I put it to them. It's a gamble. Are you willing to take that eternal gamble? You only get one shot at it. And a lot of people sober up pretty quick. You'd be surprised at how quickly they will be like, okay, I'll hear what you have to say. Because really, most people don't think about the existential questions. Once in a while, you'll get a person that does think about it, some kind of professor guy, and he'll just go off into this long philosophy thing. For these kind of people, sometimes you cannot have a two-way conversation with people. For these kind of people, I just refer them to a book, like One Heartbeat Away. Like, well, I'll get you a copy or I'll email it to you, read it, tell me what you think. Because it's better for them to have a one-way conversation with a book. You can't get anything out of them. They're not ready. Okay, so the other answer is the heaven responses. You're going to get these a lot. So if someone just tells you, well, when I die, I'm going to go to heaven. That doesn't really mean anything. A lot of people say that. So then I ask them that power question. Why should God let you into heaven? Or what would you say to God? So if you died today and God asked you, why should I let you into heaven? What would you say to God? That's the power question. Why should God let you into heaven? Here's what their answers usually are. Always, number one, I'm a good person, or some variation of what I do for God. Two is a little more like, well, God would never ask me that. Kind of a little more haughty or theological. The third is very common, is me plus Jesus. Number four is something else, who knows what. And number five is the one you want to hear, obviously, is the Jesus alone answer. So first reply, the person will say, well, I'm a good person. And then I'll say to them often, well, that's interesting. And then I'll ask them, is it what you do for God that gets you into heaven, or is it what God did for you? That puts it to them right away. It tells me, what are they trusting? Sometimes they just say that, but they weren't really thinking about it, but they really do trust Christ. So you have to ask them that to find out who they're trusting. And then you go there, it says, the Bible, it tells you how to go to heaven. It's not about being a good person. And then I say, I can show you what the Bible says so you can know for sure. What do you say? Notice I'm not arguing with them about works. I'm not going into Ephesians or anything right away. I'm getting them to the point where I can share the gospel with them, so I can go down the whole thing with them, not just into the middle. The next response sometimes is, well, God wouldn't ask that. So I'll clarify that with them, and I'll be like, well, why should God let you in? Or, so God wouldn't let you in then? Or, again, is it what you do for God that gets you to heaven, or is it what God did for you? So based on their answer, you can go right into the gospel. Or if they're answering Jesus alone, then you go to the Jesus alone response. But a lot of times, people that answer in that way, well, God would never ask me that. They're usually a lot of times they're kind of maybe religious people or kind of proud people. They don't want to have a spiritual conversation, so they'll kind of deflect the conversation that way. That's why I go into it that route. And then the next is very popular, is the me plus Jesus answer. So, well, I got baptized, or I go to church, or I'm a good person plus Jesus, and I believe in Jesus. It's what I do plus what Jesus does. So my response is usually, well, that's interesting. And again, is it what you do for God that gets you to heaven or what God did for you? Again, it's that simple power question. Is it you plus Jesus or is it Jesus alone that saves you? So if you perceive that they may not know much, then you can go into the response, which is, God, or the Bible, it tells you how to go to heaven. It's not about us plus Jesus. I can show you what the Bible says so you can know for sure. What do you say? Again, I'm asking them permission to show. But if you perceive that they may know a lot, then I always just go into the simplicity of John 3:16 and ask them to explain it to me. That's the most telling thing. Have them read John 3:16 and have them explain to you, what does that mean? That will be very telling. And then sometimes I'll give them the example of the thief on the cross, and I'll explain to them how the thief, he was not baptized, he didn't go to church, he wasn't a good person, he trusted Christ alone. And I help them to clarify that and explain the gospel. So a lot of people, Eastern Orthodox, Catholics, Mormons, they're going to argue with you. So you have to decide on how you're going to proceed with that, or if you're going to move on with somebody else. Is it worth your time or not? I've had lengthy conversations with all three of these types of people. And at the end of the day, it's just like going into a swamp. It just gets deeper and deeper. So sometimes you just want to exit out gracefully while you can. And that's a nice thing about the internet evangelism, is you can exit pretty gracefully and then on to the next person. Next response, they'll say, well, something else, some other thing about heaven. Well, that's interesting. I say, the Bible, it tells you how to go to heaven. It's not about whatever they say. I can show you what it says. Again, I'm trying to get them back into the gospel. And then, of course, I get the Jesus alone answer, which I don't just settle for that. I ask them a little bit more. I ask them, great, you remember John 3:16? And then I ask them to explain that to me. And then I ask them if the second half of that verse describes them. And I clarify with them. If they believe that Jesus is God alone and he died for their sins, that he rose again after 3 days, and it's Jesus alone that saves them. If they answer no to any of those, chances are they don't know and they need clarification, or they're in some kind of a cult. If they have trouble with that first one, which is Jesus is God alone, he died for their sins, then you can go into those deity passages, John 1, Hebrews 1, Colossians 1 for deity. A lot of times you'll come across people, they don't understand the deity of Christ at all. And that can tell you if they're a Mormon or not a lot of times. If they have trouble with number 2, then you can explain to them the reasons for the resurrection. And again, like if Jesus did not die and rise again, then he's not God. He doesn't have the power to save us from sins. You would explain the different prophecies, Jesus himself talking about how he's going to resurrect, the importance of the whole thing of the resurrection. And then the last one is about asking them is it Jesus alone that saves them. If they don't understand that, then of course you can always go to Ephesians 2:8 and 9 and explain that, and explain Romans 6:23 about the faith and the gift. A lot of times people have a trouble with the gift. A lot of people believe that the gift is conditional. They have to do something to earn the gift, or they have to do something to keep the gift. So the example I use a lot with that is a birthday party. I say, well, if you go, let's say you had a birthday party. If you have a birthday party, people love you, so they give you gifts. You can say yes to the gift, or you can say no to the gift, but you don't pay for that gift. And then I say, look, what if I got you a birthday gift, and then I came back to you the next day, and I said, look, if you want this gift, if you want to keep this gift, you got to pay me $1 a day. Is it still a gift? No, it isn't. It would be conditional at that point. That's not the gift that God is offering. It's not a conditional gift. It's either you accept the gift or you reject the gift. You're not earning it, you're not keeping it. And explaining that to them very clearly will help them to understand that. Because a lot of people, a lot of churches confuse that gift with being conditional, with either something you do before to get it, something to keep it, or something after to retain it. That is a very common issue that you're going to need to know about. So, and again, if they understand John 3:16, then I go to Romans 10, 9 to 13, and I ask them if they have ever done what Romans 10:9 says. If they say no, then I lead them to the Lord that way. If they say yes, I ask them the question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how sure are you that you'll be in heaven? If they say 10, I ask them why. They should answer something close to John 3:16 and what Christ did for them. If they answer anything other than 10, then I ask them, what's holding you back from being 10 out of 10? If it is a sin, I clarify, is it what you do for God that gets you to heaven, or is it what God did for you? And when Jesus died for your sins, does he die for all of your sins or some of them? Then I ask them if they want to take their doubts to God once and for all. I go over Romans 10, 9 through 13 carefully, and I offer to pray with them. And I clarify again and again, however many times it takes. Sometimes I've done that 2 or 3 times. Don't be afraid to go over with them if they don't get it. That is the big difference. A lot of people have mental knowledge of John 3:16, but until you ask them those things, they don't know about it at all. You have to clarify. You have to follow through. That's the difference between someone that knows what it is and does not. And then we go on to this other part, which is when people are asking you, well, I don't believe in God, or prove to me God exists. This is the last part here. So I ask them, this is my favorite power question for that, and that is, if what you believe is not true, would you want to know? And that works well with just about any belief out there. If that works, I go right into the gospel, and I show them. And again, give them permission. They can, or not permission, but I give them the choice if they want to do that, if they want to continue on or not. And many atheists I've led to the Lord just that way with that one question. It really works. But if that does not work, I use the house analogy. Because they were like, well, prove to me God exists. Well, then I use the house analogy. I ask them, do you live in a house? Yes. Who built the house? Well, my dad did, or my grandpa did, or someone built it. And then I describe them how a house is built. A house doesn't build itself. It needs a builder. It needs the tools. It needs the skills. It needs the plans, everything together. And I say, is it possible for a house to build itself? No. And then I go into the human body description. I say, look at your fingerprint. See how complex it is? And how it's only unique to them in the entire world. If they do a crime, it'll pinpoint back to them. I talk about the complexity of their voice, how it's unique to them. Their body, how everything works together perfectly. The complexity of their DNA, and how only they in the entire world have that DNA of all time. And then I tell them they're not a random chance occurrence, but they were intentionally created, designed by God in His image for a reason. If they are positive and they respond well to that, then I go right into the gospel. That works a lot. It's such a simple analogy, and it works. And you know, the Bible, it tells you how you can go into heaven. I go right into that. But if they're hostile, you can decide whether you want to continue or not. If you don't want to continue, you can compliment them, and you can suggest to them the book, One Heartbeat Away by Mark Cahill. I've done that many times, if you don't want to mess with that. But sometimes there are people, again, you cannot have a two-way conversation with them, so it's good to do that. But, however, there will be people that are interested, they want to continue. So next, I go into the question, how do you think we got here? Where did we come from? And then these are the answers I get. I get the Big Bang, or evolution. I get the universe is an illusion. I get the universe is eternal, or I get God. These are usually kind of in these categories. So for the first one with the Big Bang, they'll often say, well, evolution, and then I'll ask them before that, where did we come from? Where did the first cell come from? Well, they say Big Bang. And then I'll ask them if they've ever heard any problems with the Big Bang. A lot of people have never heard any pushback on that, which One Heartbeat Away has a lot of good info on that. I tell them that something can never come from nothing. The universe cannot create itself from nothing. I tell them that the Big Bang needs a first cause. I tell them that order never comes from chaos. An explosion always creates more chaos. I tell them that life never comes from non-life. Energy has no consciousness. You can't talk to a rock, it's not alive. A fire, a lightning bolt, it's not alive in the same way that a cell is. So to go from non-life to the first life. First cell is a huge jump. It's never been observed. Just simple things like that is enough usually to convince majority of people. And in evolution, if they want to talk evolution, I'll explain the difference between micro and macro evolution, with the macro being the one that's unobservable over long periods of time. I'll explain the complexity of a single-cell organism. I'll talk to them about the problems of carbon dating, it only being accurate to a certain amount of time. I'll tell them about dinosaurs with the soft tissues being discovered. I'll talk about the Drake equation. The Drake equation is an equation that was determine all the different conditions it takes to have life on Earth. It was put together into one equation. And the basically impossibility of that happening anywhere else mathematically. And I talked to them about the Fermi paradox. So if you have a petri dish and you have a drop of pond water and you go under a microscope, you look inside of there, there's countless life in there. So the Fermi paradox says, well, if that's the case, why isn't outer space like that? Why aren't there UFOs flying all over the place? Why aren't all the other planets have life? I give them a population example. Every 40 years, the population doubles. Even conservatively with war and famine disease, it doubles every 150 years, which would mean that 4,500 years ago after the flood, if our population started, we would be at about 6 billion like we're at right now. But if we use the same estimates, assuming that humans have been around for 50,000 years, we would have this 1 times 10 to the 100 population. You would have bones piled up everywhere. There would be people massively populated all over the place. You can look up many simple examples just like that that will dismantle evolution. And a lot of people have never thought about these things before. They've never been pushed back on that, so that really helps. And then a lot of the world believes that the universe is an illusion. Your Buddhists, your Hindus, your New Age people, they think that way. But I tell them that in order to know what an illusion is, you have to know what an illusion is not. You have to compare an illusion to reality. Like if you go to a magic show, you see a guy pull a rabbit out of the hat, you think, wow, how is that possible? That's not true. You're aware of that illusion. You know what the illusion is. You can only be aware of it because you have something to compare it to, reality. And that's where the whole Descartes quote says, I think, therefore I am. Something like that can really make the people that believe that we live in a matrix to think about it. Then the eternal universe. I tell them, look, that time exists, it can be measured. There's radiation traces in the galaxy. There's an origin event. The universe isn't eternal. And then I go to the God. I tell them about God. So God is something outside of time, space, and matter, created time, space, and matter. We're inside that box. We cannot go outside that box. When we explain the universe, we do it inside of that box of time, space, and matter. God is a spirit. He's outside of that. He created everything. And Genesis 1 sums it up. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. God is a creator. He created, created is the first cause, beginning is the time, heavens is space, and earth is matter. God created time, space, and matter. Those things do not apply to God. He's outside of them. You can walk them through these different articles about, is there an existence for God? That simple verse right there and explaining it to people has changed the hearts of many an atheist I've come across. It's very simple. It's not that complex. So again, if you perceive those things are going well, you have the stamina, go into the gospel. Sometimes this can be an hour-long conversation when you go through the full thing, and it happens. People get saved that way. So in conclusion, I just want to bring up these power questions again. And the power questions are, number 1, if you died today, are you 100% sure that you'll be in heaven? Number 2, if God asked you, why should I let you into heaven, what would you say? Number 3, is it what you do for God that gets you to heaven, or is it what God did for you? On a scale of 1 to 10, how sure will you be that you'll be in heaven when you die? And then the last one is, if what you believe is wrong, would you want to know? So take this video, take this recording that you saw today, take this information, write it down, give it a try. Do it, go on the internet and engage people. You're going to make lots of mistakes. When I first started doing this, I was embarrassed and humiliated many times. I failed many times. But you can't give up. There's going to be that one person that's going to be out there waiting and ready to be saved. Most people aren't going to be hardcore atheists that are going to have all these arguments and things like that. Most people are pretty much a clean slate. And again, the powerful thing about the internet evangelism is we're talking about people all around the world. You can access right with your smartphone. You have access to that. You can be a soul winner every single day. You can be an Apostle Paul just in your basement. It's completely possible. So I want to encourage you guys to think about this. I want to encourage you guys to pray about it, to talk to your pastor about it. Get the tools that you need to do this. I can email you some of these things as well, and you can start on that path. All right, I hope that's a blessing to you guys today. Let's conclude with a word of prayer. Dear God, thank you for this time we have together. Thank you for this internet evangelism and awareness of it. And God, these new generations are open to this, and they are waiting for people to come out and talk to them and to engage them. I pray you give us the tools and the willingness and the courage to share the gospel with people on the internet. And God, I pray that you bring many people across our paths to be saved. Life is short and eternity is forever. Many people are dying. Even as I'm doing this conversation, many people are dying and going to hell. And God, I know that you can use us. We have to be willing to do it in this era. We love you. We thank you. We ask these things in the name of Christ. Amen.